Welcome to uBook channel. Read and listen to the greatest stories that mankind has ever told. From Iliad to COVID terror, and other famous classics. Enjoy the best world literatures throughout history.
COVID terror. Copyright 2021 by Gerry de Cadiz. All rights reserved. A unified Al-Qaeda and Islamic State took advantage of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in reinvigorating its jihadist cause for dominance and the re-establishment of a caliphate. Secretary-General of the United Nations, Antonio Manuel de Oliveira Guterres, said, "We are in this together, and we will get through this, together."
COVID terror. Chapter 21.
Zulfikar Resort, Los Angeles, California. May 10, 2020. The Khalifa declared with finality his intention to force the issue of establishing a caliphate by military confrontation. The Zulfikar Resort is a 30 acres of oceanfront private property owned by Al Hassani Industries. Acquired in 2010 for $3.5 million from a prominent Hollywood actor, it became an epitome of a high-class personal haunt for Aaron and his cohorts. This is the caliphate's private piece of paradise. Providing a relaxing vibe, and just a few minutes away from the bustling metropolis of Los Angeles, his vacation home is an escape from the hectic and stressful life in the city. The pristine waves and golden beach complement so well with the minimalist design of the building and cottages, that is beautiful yet highly functional. There is 1 in 1,000 chance that a fruit fly can be noticed in a flea market. But it cannot escape scrutiny in a richly furbished and luxurious environment, where everything is under strict order to be in a spick and span. The diminutive Delphi, designed by Delft University of Technology and experimented by the company, has been in its advanced state of development. With the help of 4 wings made of an ultralight transparent foil powered by a light, economical motor, it mimics the wing movements of a fruit fly. Having miniature antennas for navigation system, the spy drone can be controlled remotely via global positioning system. The ultra-sensitive camera lenses feed vision and real-time videos back to an artificial intelligence software, installed in its handler's smartphone. A CIA agent 2 miles off manipulated the spy drone into the Zulfikar compound. Seen from above, the resort looks like what a place for relaxation or pleasure should be. The lighting of the place is subdued, and no movements can be discerned within its expanse. At past midnight, only some security personnel can be seen, sitting comfortably in their posts. The buildings appear to be deserted. Not the buggers' camp they expected, the agent swore under his breath, enduring the foggy cold of the West Coast. He was ordered from a drunken stupor to watch the AI complex for suspected illegal activities. But he has to be very careful. Things like this oftentimes change to become the unexpected. About 500 meters from the nearest fence of the property, and flying 3 meters off the ground, something struck the drone. A sudden flash like lightning, which in a split second damaged its electronic systems, leaving the agent with a static monitor in his phone. A fucking EMP. The night's cold in his body has been suppressed by a sudden surge of adrenaline. The compound has a security umbrella, utilizing an active electromagnetic pulse that radiates a short burst of high-voltage electric current to any hapless intruder, especially miniaturized digital sleuthing gadgets. A plastic bug just got fizzled. Ayman Kalimov pointed at the mission control monitor. "It's a probe," Amir Al-Quraishi noted. In the past, several attempts were made by intelligence agencies, and even the FBI, to examine the mysterious resort. But such efforts usually stopped in its track, once Aaron called some friends from the Hoover building, or in Langley. It's getting frequent. maintain the facade, and raise our status to code orange. Aaron ordered Mohammed Nazar to intensify the resort's internal security features. The facade is the outward look of the entire place. In broad daylight, it can be seen that there are people enjoying the pool, families having picnics at lawns, children in raucous games at the playgrounds, and lovers doing their thing in secluded parts of the resort. In this time of the year, surfers had started enjoying the waves, while bikini-clad beauties frolic or sunbath at the mile-long beach of Zulfikar Resort. Nothing unusual, except that a close scrutiny may reveal that those enjoying the California heat follow a 4-hour shift. Not just that everyone are in the best physique, and mostly of Middle Eastern stock, they are also agile and precise in movements. The previous week saw batches of visitors getting into the compound, and occupying several underground bunkers. At the Salt Wells Villa in Nevada, a post hung at the main gate stating, "Temporary closed for inventory." At least 500 salespersons, casino attendants, security guards, and maintenance staff found their way to the Zulfikar Resort in Los Angeles. As day zero of Operation Zulfikar came to a close, the Al-Qaeda ISIS force at the Macaron is about the size of a composite battalion, with 3 full-strength companies of well-trained and fully equipped jihadists, deployed in strategic locations of the compound. The blessings of Allah be with us all. Let us take a rest for our health and power in the coming adversity. Using a public address system inside the bunkers, Aaron bid his warriors to enjoy a refreshing night of sleep. Inside the Khalifa's Ghurfat al-Arb, a portion was allocated for the performance of the daily prayers. After midnight, Aaron called his commanders and staff for a Salat al-Fajr, the dawn prayer, which is one of the 5 mandatory salat. The war room is not only for secular affairs, but also for religious adversity. The Fajr prayer consists of 2 rakat, which are prescribed movements. As they are a congregation, the Khalifa recited loudly the parable of light, from Quran chapter 24 verse 35. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The parable of his light is a niche, wherein is a lamp, the lamp is in a glass, the glass as it were a glittering star, lit from a blessed olive tree, neither eastern nor western, whose oil almost lights up, though fire should not touch it. Light upon light. Allah guides to his light whomever he wishes. Allah draws parables for mankind, and Allah has knowledge of all things. By 5 o'clock in the morning, Lake Mead and its surrounding man-made structures are so quiet. At the Hoover Dam complex, not even a dog can be seen moving in any part of it. Regular motorists traversing in Interstate 11 and Route 93 noticed the eerie silence and emptiness of the dam and its structures. The first to discover the anomaly were employees of Southern Nevada Water Authority, who habitually report to work early. Upon passing through the security shacks, they noticed new faces manning the checkpoint. The ugly thing happened when they parked to the designated space for employees. After coming out of their vehicles, they were met by armed parking attendants in balaclava, who ordered them to take a blindfold and be guided to a confined space. Resistance is not tolerated, as it will result to instant death by cutting the throat of the disobedient, using the blade of jihad. When the blindfold is taken off, the prisoner saw that he or she is inside the Hoover Dam Visitors Center. Several black-cladded men, similar to those seen on TV that they call ISIS, fully armed with high-caliber weapons, are lining the side walls. In the wall panel and mural at the far end of the room, a large black flag of the dreaded jihadist group is prominently displayed in the middle portion, partially covering the digital printout showing the intakes, penstocks, and generators. On a wall-mounted TV monitor, a multimedia presentation keeps on playing of the ideological beliefs and principles, as well as the different heroic exploits of the Islamic State leaders and warriors, not just in the Middle East, but also in other countries of the world. Near the center of the room is a table, with a sign pen and logbook on top. Infidel, will you submit to the will of Allah, the one and only true God, and follow Muhammad his prophet? the prisoner is asked just once to discard his old religion, and embrace Islam. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulallah. If the prisoner agrees, he will recite the formula of accepting the Islamic faith, and sign in the logbook as proof of conversion. The victim will be blindfolded again, then handcuffed, and will be sent to a secured and locked holding area. For those who would stick with their faith, instant death will befall on them. The prisoner will be ordered to kneel, and bow his or her head, for a quick and painless demise. The Al-Qaeda ISIS commander Abu Ayman al-Iraqi will step to the center of the room with an executioner's sword, and cut the victim's head off the neck, in one quick slashing blow. For the unruly, the blade of jihad is the worst option through a slow, painful, and very horrifying death. This bloody scenario is being repeated in other facilities of various locations in the Lake Mead area, which were captured by the Babylon platoon of the Caliphate army, under the command of Abu Muslim al-Turkmani. The new converts will serve later on, as members of the Al-Qaeda ISIS Army of Adversity in the United States. The first sign of trouble came, when the telephone kept ringing at the office of the supervisor of Hoover Dam. A secretary wanted to take a day off for a personal errand. She was alarmed, upon realizing that it's not her night shift colleague who answered the phone, then abruptly hung up. She called the head of security, but his phone kept on ringing. Another call to her office mate, who always report ahead of anybody, gave the same result. "Can you raise any of your colleague at the dam?" She asked her husband, who is a member of the security response force. "Sure thing, why?" Rick Flighter was preparing to take the 8 o'clock shift. "Seems like everybody are taking a day off." She kept to herself her suspicion and fear. "Can I have a roster of the graveyard shift?" The man called his department, to inquire who among the personnel are on night duty. The SRF provides security and law enforcement services, for the dam and its surrounding security zone. With an area of responsibility which encompass approximately 22 square miles, the unit can only spare a few numbers of security personnel, to patrol the dam complex. After getting the numbers of the law enforcers, he called them one by one. Nobody answered his calls, which is very unusual. He called again the department to verify the situation at the dam. After a minute, a reply from his chief came back. Its code read, "Converge at Point Zulu in 30 minutes. Rick was surprised. Except in the World War II phobia against Nazi and Jap spies and saboteurs, the dam was never subjected to an attempt, or any form of attack. The policeman changed his office duty uniform, to that of the combat fatigues. He's been affiliated with the Special Weapons and Tactics of Nevada, in the last 5 years of his active service. He hastens his preparations, getting into an armor vest swaddled with additional cartridges for his Glock 19 duty pistol, a survival knife, medical kits, a flashlight, mountain reconnaissance equipment, flashbangs, and the lethal M67 fragmentation grenades. He fastened in both thighs a belt of 6-pouch fully loaded magazines, for his Colt M4 carbine, with add-on capabilities like scope, laser, and night vision device. His bulletproof tactical helmet came last, along with the Scott Airpack SCBA components, to provide protection during high-risk search and rescue operations, hazardous chemicals, or biological environments. "What's wrong? Is there an emergency?" His wife hugged him tight. "Stay inside the house and don't let anyone come in. He suspects a terrorist attack." Kissing her after getting the car key, he drove towards Interstate 11. Within reach is his standard-issue SWAT assault rifle, with an attached M203 single-shot underbarrel grenade launcher. A belt of the 40mm ammunitions, hung in the front passenger seat. Sort of an insurance, he brings along his best buddy, a British L96A1 bolt-action sniper rifle, that has a maximum firing range of nearly 4 kilometers, picking up two 7.62 by 51mm NATO cartridge magazines. First time in the history of Hoover Dam, that the security status was categorized under red, the highest, which indicate that an emergency at the facility happened or currently occurring. It would mean a physical damage that compromises the structural integrity of the dam, or an attack to its personnel by external forces, or both. Boxer to sidekick. The pond is deep. The pilot of MD-500E chopper radioed the Security Response Force, the federal law enforcement unit under the Bureau of Reclamation, with the mission to provide physical security for the Hoover Dam. As the most senior officer of the SRF, Captain Rick Flider led in setting up, then took charge, of the incident command system to respond to this emergency. The light civilian utility helicopter has been designated as a search and rescue air asset of Boulder City. It was requested by the SRF for a quick reconnaissance of the dam complex when night shift. Personnel did not respond to any of the department's order to report the situation on the ground. Acknowledged Boxer. But a little swoop to the nests would be nice. Over. A deep pond means that the entire administration area and dam complex were deserted as seen from above. 2 police interceptor utility vehicles stopped at Nevada Route 172, 1 mile north of the dam. A dozen members of the SWAT team alighted from their vehicles to check their weapons and ammunitions. This is an unusual situation for the elite police force, responding at a moment's notice, and having no solid intelligence from the ground. Sidekick, be advised that Papa Romeo is down at Visitor Center. The spotter came back, informing the police of a dead park ranger. Carry on Boxer. Any telltale of bad guys? The chopper did another turn, and went lower to the powerhouse at the Nevada bank of the Colorado River. As it flew at level with the valve house, a sudden burst of gunfire erupted. 2 PKM machine gun slugs hit the brow and neck of the co-pilot, instantly killing him. Zombies! Zombies! The pilot shouted in fear at the radio, pulling hard at the stick to veer away from the source of fire. A fire team of former soldiers of the Haris al-Iraq al-Jamhuri has been tracking the flight of the flying egg, as MD-500E is commonly called due to its compact, ovoid fuselage. Commanded by Rakib Awal, the 4-man team jockeyed for space on the hard floor, and along the walls, of a crooked and well-camouflaged octagonal pillbox, that sat on a bluff along the Arizona border, perched high above Lake Mead. A 2-foot-high window in the reinforced concrete wall offered the shooters a 270-degree view of the Hoover Dam complex. Log its positions. Anything closer to 2 clicks to our post, unleash the damned stinger. The staff sergeant commanded his team. The commander of Task Force Hoover Dam, read online the history of this military installation. This was a product of the World War II phobia of the Americans, that the Nazis might sabotage the 4-year-old tallest dam on Earth at that time. Abu Ayman al-Iraqi made a strict order to man this defensive position, and act decisively against any aircraft that will wander near the dam, whether it may be military or civilian. The 4 gun slots on either side of the window suit so well with the 2 FN Mag-58 and launchers of the FIM-92. Stacked against one wall is a 2-day supply of ammunition for the machine guns, and magazine cartridges for each of their AK-15 Kalashnikov rifles. A dozen of Stingers, the infrared homing surface-to-air missiles, were neatly arranged at the center of the bunker. Leaning in another wall are several packs of MRE, that self-contained, individual field ration in lightweight packaging, for use in combat or other field condition. Gallons of water are on hand, more than enough to survive a sustained fighting for 2 days. Another team of fighters is on the way to augment this post. The squad in this lone anti-air defensive position will have a very long day ahead. Shawish, it has dived behind the dam, the John D updated his sergeant. The private and his companions heard a rapid radio chatter on the communication sets. It means that the squads deployed at the powerhouses noticed the approach of the chopper. Our brothers knew what to do. That flying sucker will be in for a surprise party. The team leader smiled with confidence. But just the same, be ready in case it can't be finished off. The Flying Eggs pilot is an experienced aviator, who logged at least 200 flying hours. Although he's qualified also to handle a fixed-wing aircraft, being in the civilian world still create a sense of uncertainty, when faced with a military situation. Sidekick, the pond is hot. Right jockey is down. He nearly slammed the chopper to the opposite cliff, in his frantic maneuvering to get away from the shooter. He forgot to report to base his coordinates. The only thing that the pilot has in mind, is to escape from the dam as far as possible. He veered to the left and gained altitude. As he cleared the crest just above the old Highway 93, the pilot casually glanced upwards to his right. In the early morning light, he can discern the majestic monument plaza with the winged figures of the Republic guarding the 44-meter flagpole. Something's not right as he edged the chopper closer to the mast. Holy damned ghost! The man blasphemed. The Stars and Stripes is still burning at the flagstaff pedestal. In its place at the top, fluttering in the morning breeze, is a black banner with a bold white calligraphy above a white circular field, containing a set of black script. The pilot is familiar with this flag used by masked jihadists, who branded themselves as warriors of Allah, with the Western TV channels, full of horrific news reports on the conquests and subjugation of the Islamic State. Base. Sidekick, the pool sinks in black sand. I repeat, black sand. He reported the grave situation. The emphasis on black sand would alert not just the SWAT team, but also the US military, of a possible ISIS attack in one of the country's essential facilities. The entire dam complex is most likely teeming with booby traps, and considerable number of fully armed combatants. This is the brand of fighting of the terrorists. The pilot pushed hard the throttle for full power. As he grabbed the flight control stick for a 180-degree turn, the chopper's missile approach warning system blared that jolted him, his foot putting too much pressure on the pedal. As he tried to stabilize the torque, a FIM-92 Stinger smacked at the tail boom and exploded with such violence that the cabin spun like a top in mid-air, giving him no time to call, "Mayday! Mayday!" before the chopper dropped and exploded right on top of the plaza's terrazzo floor with the celestial map, the jet fuel adding conflagration to the American flag. Comment allez-vous? I just checked my email, and saw the research concept you attached. As always, Dr. Hubert Manville seems cheerful on the phone. They've been friends since her stint at the University of Cambridge as her dissertation advisor. He also helped her validate among peers the discovery of virus X, the coronavirus strain which was subsequently stolen by terrorists and maliciously propagated to become the COVID-19 pandemic. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon here in Paris, and I think you're just starting your day. I discussed your proposed problem over lunch today. 2 colleagues were interested to join in the study. Bonjour, mon ami. That's very much welcome. It's been some time she had a talk with her mentor. I'm wrapping up our Sinovac studies. We are waiting for the evaluation report, and final approval of the FDA, so we can have the license to manufacture and distribute the vaccine. In the course of their experiments and testing the COVID-19 vaccine, the AI Med lead scientist is indebted to the reviews and suggestions made by experts, from her colleagues at Wuhan Institute of Virology and the Institut Pasteur. We expect you to be back here, the moment you're done with the AI Med contract. The weather in Paris is getting sweeter. Not too soon, I guess, she quipped. There is this thing that I want to discuss with you. You may, share. He's that accommodating. You're familiar with ricin, that lectin, and highly potent toxin from Ricinus communis, right? Of course. It's a priority substance that we are currently studying, amidst the concerns raised by the European Union, with the reported intent of the Islamic State to use ricin as part of their weaponry. That's the issue I want to bring out, especially that it's related to what we are doing at present in the laboratory. Hubert was alarmed. How is that so? I've been conducting an inventory of the materials we used during experiments with the vaccine, when I saw a sales invoice for the delivery of 15 tons of castor beans to an address in Nevada. But it was purchased under the name of AI Med Laboratory. There was a pause on the other line. After a while, the Nobel Prize nominee came on. That's enough to produce 750 grams of the protein toxin. The median lethal dose of ricin is around 22 micrograms per kilogram of body weight, if the exposure is from injection or inhalation. The probable mode of contact could be through ingestion. That volume of toxin can poison a large volume of water. If such liquid solution is ingested, it can lead to millions of casualties. Gwen shivered at the thought of that doomsday scenario, far worse than the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. She came across two publications which elucidated the probability of what the French scientist explained. Ricin is a toxin produced by the castor bean Ricinus communis. Approximately 5%, by dry weight, of castor bean mash, pulverized castor beans after they have been crushed to extract castor bean oil, is ricin. Although not nearly as toxic as botulinum toxin, it is still considered many times more toxic than the most lethal nerve agents. The toxin blocks cellular protein synthesis, leading to cell death and tissue necrosis. If ricin is inhaled, the patient will develop airway necrosis and bleeding, severe inflammation of the trachea, bronchi, and distal airways, alveoli. Pneumonia and pulmonary edema develop with widespread necrosis of lung tissue. If ingested, ricin produces predominantly gastrointestinal symptoms first, including bloody stools, vomiting blood, and abdominal pain. Ricin can also be injected, and has been used in this fashion for assassinations. However, all these routes of exposure can culminate in systemic toxicity and death. As there is no antitoxin or antidote for ricin poisoning, treatment is purely supportive. The toxin ricin has long been understood to have potential for criminal activity, and there has been concern that it might be used as a mass-scale weapon on a military basis, for at least 2 decades. Currently, the focus has extended to encompass terrorist activities using ricin to disrupt everyday activities on a smaller scale. Whichever scenario is considered, there are features in common which need to be understood. These include the knowledge of the toxicity from ricin poisoning by the likely routes, methods for the detection of ricin in relevant materials, and approaches to making an early diagnosis of ricin poisoning, in order to take therapeutic steps to mitigate the toxicity. Have you informed the authorities about it? He could not take this issue lightly. I haven't, but I plan to do so, after I to talk it out first with the AI Med executive, Mr. Aaron Al-Hassani. She have some suspicions. Whoever conceived that plan of mass poisoning is a genocidal maniac, Hubert declared. Or a fiendish slaughterer, Gwen thought. Dr. Del Pilar, the company chopper will fetch you from the lab. Al-Hassani agreed to spare a time for a confidential meeting. This is the first time that she rode in a helicopter. The Sikorsky Executive S-92 traversed along the coast from Palo Alto to Los Angeles. The view from the air is magnificent. In the horizon, the skyline of downtown LA looks refreshing with the morning mist, despite the expected urban pollution from vehicles and industrial exhausts later in the day. Kindly bring the paper that you mentioned to me, he reminded her. She has it in her pouch. But for good reason. Before she left her room at the aimed hostel, she took a picture of the sales invoice and emailed it to Sage. In the past few weeks, her emotions seesawed. On one hand, the good times she had with the UNU professor, and the completion of the Sinovac clinical trials, while on the other hand, her attempted abduction in China, and the latest car chase and shooting along Sunset Boulevard. Added to that her frustrations over the loss of virus X in WIV, and tampering of the arenavirus from the AI Med laboratory. The other passenger is a burly man, whose eyes is always alert of everything she does. "Gwen, where are you?" She took a call from Sage, who sounds very worried. "I'm at 2,000 feet above the ground, on my way to the AI Med CEO for a special meeting. I have an important email to you. You should have told me the exhilarating experience you got when flying in a chopper." She gleefully expressed her elation to Sage. In a desperate voice, Sage shouted in her phone, "You must find a way to." The man snatched her phone. She struggled to take it back, but he is so strong to have gripped both her wrists with one hand. He produced a plastic handcuff out of nowhere, and tied her hands securely from behind. A tape gag was attached to her mouth, making it impossible for the Filipino geneticist to struggle, or call for help when they land. The boss said that you must not talk with anyone. Her captor returned the phone to her pouch, as he continued to stare at the blue Pacific Ocean. The helicopter swirled for a second, then dropped to the ground in a ball of fire. A motorist on Interstate 11 highway from the direction of Arizona, was still frightened when she was accosted by the members of the Security Response Force. "We heard the sound from here. But what have you seen before that?" Captain Rick Flider asked the panicked SUV driver. "I was slowing down to enjoy the breeze at the Mike O'Callaghan Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge. As I took my gaze at the imposing dam, the place looks like deserted, except for a chopper hovering above the Monument Plaza, seemingly investigating on something. It was so sudden. The last thing I saw, a missile hit the tail of the helicopter and exploded. The chopper went down and burned fiercely right in front of the flagpole." "Did you saw where the missile started?" "This information is very critical for the SRF to plan its action." "No sir. It may have come from the dam, or anywhere from the structures in the complex. But I'm sure that the chopper alignment is parallel to the dam, as its cockpit faced the flag." "The flag?" she unexpectedly blurted out. "What about it?" a trooper asked. She looked at them in horror. "It's not our flag flying at the pole. It's a black one with white scribbles, similar to what the media called the flag of ISIS terrorists." Water is the driving force of nature. Lake Mead contains 26.12 million acre-feet of water, considered to be the largest reservoir in the United States in terms of capacity. It is a man-made lake, formed with the construction of the Hoover Dam on September 30, 1935. The lake is the main source of drinking water for the 20 million inhabitants of California, Arizona, and Nevada, as well as some of Mexico. It also irrigated large areas of farmland that provides food sustenance to the people of the American West. The dam generates an average of 4 billion kilowatt-hours of hydroelectric power, for use of 1.3 million people in Nevada, Arizona and California. "Do we have a live sat-nav of the implants?" Amira asked Yusuf, as the private chopper lifted off from the Hoover Dam Visitor Center. He checked the GPS receiver in his phone. "It's sketchy for now, but the marked items are clearly visible online." The poor signal is an interference, as the Sikorsky A-60 Black Hawk skittered along the El Dorado Mountains, passing through Mojave National Preserve on the way to California. The ex-US Army Black Hawk is one of the 3 military-grade choppers owned by Al-Hassani Industries. These were acquired in 2015 when the Federal Aviation Administration relaxed the rules on civilian ownership of U.S. air assets, to be used for firefighting and special purpose functions. The Sikorsky A-60 Black Hawk is a 4-blade, twin-engine, medium-lift utility helicopter. With an endorsement from General Friedrich Clark, it was easy for Aaron to justify before Pentagon top brass, that the programming and field testing of the government-funded Project Black Nexus needs efficient air mobility of personnel and equipment. The implants refer to the RCX, the ricin, and coronavirus experimental bioweapon that Task Force Lake Mead submerged in the lake, and the various water treatment facilities around it. A single activation of the GPS-based detonator at the Advanced Combat Direction System will cause the explosion of the implants, and contaminate the drinking water that will flow to the homes of several millions of people. Amira noted the suggestions of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on how ricin poisoning is treated. Because no antidote exists for ricin, the most important factor is avoiding ricin exposure in the first place. If exposure cannot be avoided, the most important factor is then getting the ricin off or out of the body as quickly as possible. Symptomatic ricin poisoning is treated by giving victims supportive medical care to minimize the effects of the poisoning. The types of supportive medical care would depend on several factors, such as the route by which victims were poisoned, that is, whether poisoning was by inhalation, ingestion, or skin or eye exposure. Care could include such measures as helping victims breathe, giving them intravenous fluids given through a needle inserted into a vein, giving them medications to treat conditions such as seizure and low blood pressure, flushing their stomachs with activated charcoal, if the ricin has been very recently ingested, or washing out their eyes with water if their eyes are irritated.
This is very innovative. Nazim Al-Afari, the Iraqi scientist, exclaimed. It was only recently that in one of the trials at the Al-Qaeda ISIS laboratory in Nevada, Dr. Amira Siddiqui found out that SARS-CoV-2 can survive in water for up to 15 days. The coronavirus has been observed to remain viable and stable in a liquid solution. By means of in vitro data, we were able to establish the level of risk of infection of a viral diluted water. She grinned at their new discovery. As a researcher, Nazim still have some doubts. How can we be sure that it will be effective? With the kind of topography, weather, and the biological contaminants of Lake Mead, there is a high probability that the COVID virus can survive and be transported from the water treatment facilities to the supply of potable water. Amira reviewed the research reports and noted the consistency of the data generated in several test tube experiments. In the current pandemic situation, various studies attested that it takes only one viral strain to infect a person. Scientists had ascertained that once the virus binds to the epithelial cells, it starts replicating. It is now a common knowledge that the coronavirus contains specific genes in ORF1 downstream regions that encode proteins for viral replication, nucleocapsid, and spikes formation. The glycoprotein spikes of SARS-CoV-2 are responsible for its attachment and entry to the host cells. The angiotensin-converting enzyme 2 is the key receptor through its receptor binding domain, and is activated by human proteases, those enzymes that catalyzes proteolysis, or the breaking down of proteins into smaller polypeptides, or single amino acids. We won't have any problem with the other agent. It was commonly known in the scientific community that ricin is water-soluble. It was by accident that Amira came across an article from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention about the signs and symptoms of ricin exposure. Accordingly, within a few hours of inhaling significant amounts of ricin, the likely symptoms would be respiratory distress, difficulty breathing, fever, cough, nausea, and tightness in the chest. Heavy sweating may follow, as well as fluid building up in the lungs, pulmonary edema. Not so much different with that of SARS-CoV-2, which attacks also the lungs, she mused. Several formulations and testing were done to finally come up with a water solution containing coronavirus and ricin to form a super germ agent she dubbed as RCX. People may think that filtering and chlorination, or ultraviolet disinfection, could ensure a safe drinking water. That won't be true in this case, she challenged him. I know. The dose of chlorine or ultraviolet radiation may not meet the minimum limits required for reducing SARS-CoV-2 loads to undetectable levels. I'm sure no one will be getting a glass of water and measure the exact amount of up to 4 milligrams of chlorine per liter, to be mixed with the drink. He explained with a laugh. The lady Al-Qaeda has a habit of anticipating one's thought. Of course, you'll suggest the boiling of water. Why not? He knows that a thermal disinfection of at least 60 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes, can have a remarkable reduction of an infectiousness of the coronavirus. Likewise, ricin can be inactivated by heat above 80 degrees centigrade, 176 degrees Fahrenheit. That is, if they still have the fire to boil it. She looked at him with disdain, then explained at his innocent stare. As we speak, our faithful brothers are creating with something, as a solution to that issue.
Amiro looked at the distant clouds, hovering over the Bridge Canyon Wilderness, in the Lake Mead National Recreation Area. In the early morning sky, several cities can be discerned from the horizon, some of which were established, when the desert was dotted with dams in the Colorado River systems, starting in the 1930s. With waters for drinking and other domestic use, as well as for irrigations and hydroelectricity, people started to settle the barren environments, and urban areas sprouted like mushrooms in the previously dry and arid land. As they crossed Interstate 40 entering the Golden State, she reminisced the first time she came to the United States in 1990, as a student at the University of Houston. Because of her religious convictions, she kept away from visiting movies, reading novels, or watching the TV, except for the news. But from then on, she came to love her second home, a land that offers a lot of opportunities, if you just use your mind and be hardworking. After witnessing the proselytizing ceremony of converts, and handing out of just punishment to the infidels at the visitors center, she went outside and explored the dam facilities. In a prominent area, she saw a monument to those workers, who died during the construction of the Hoover Dam, which includes those who fell from sheer rock faces, drowned in water, succumbed to dynamite explosions, and equipment accidents. The panel dedication reads, "They died to make the desert bloom." After the launching of Operation Zulfikar this morning, she wonders, if those cities in the desert would still bloom in the next 25 years, with the planned Holocaust that the Sheikh of Slaughterers has in mind.
Thank you for watching. Write in the comments section, for your request as to what book, usually from Project Gutenberg, you want us to feature in U-Book channel.
Click like to boost the rating of U-Book channel, make a comment for us for the improvement of our services, and share this video to your friends, with the copyright intact. Please click subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified of new uploads from U-Book channel.